So this is Hunstanton Beach, and it's a beach that I spent almost every summer holiday since I was about 0 years old. And I have this beautiful memory, this incredibly privileged memory of being there with my family and going raking for cockles and picking mussels and going shrimping. And for me, and I'm sure for many of you, this is my example of this incredibly privileged relationship that I have with the ocean. It's okay. Yeah, I'm okay. It's just water. I'm right. So it was really weird when last year we found this photo in a fishing museum. And in this one photo is probably more oysters than are left in the whole of England. These guys and their friends essentially overfished them all. And this is not just a culinary loss, but it's a deeply practical one as well. Oysters do fantastic jobs for our environment. They clean the water, they provide homes for so many species of fish, many of which we eat, and they protect our coastlines as well. In orange here is just oyster reefs. The whole of the UK coastline, you can see the whole of the Belgian coastline was just oyster reefs, this living concrete mat. And this map was made at a time when we were already in peak oyster harvest. So in 1864, a population of 2 million people in London ate almost 1 billion oysters in 1 year. That's about 500, it was 450 oysters per person per year on average. So some people are eating a lot more than that as well. So this loss is not just, relevant because of these practical jobs, but particularly in an era where we're suffering from rising sea levels and climate change, we're really feeling these missing engineers more and more. So when I left university, I had studied marine ecology and I was dead set on trying to help the ocean. And what I realized after I joined a marine conservation charity was that unfortunately, we were not doing very much of anything at all. We had really big ambitions, but we were completely throttled by the amount of money that we had available to do this mission. And for a zealous university graduate, this was too slow and painful. And I said, right, I need to do something else. And I wanted to go find the people with the money and then try and make those people more interested in the ocean. So, missing. Oh, that's the photo that was meant to be. This is me working for a pension fund. And I joined this company called Henderson, and I was on a team of 2 people on the first wave of sustainability. And my mission was to covertly, and I'd sort of put on a suit and everything, to try and persuade people that the oceans are really cool and we had to protect them. And I was working with a series of middle-aged fund managers, people managing big teachers' pension funds, sitting on multiple billion euro funds, like absurd amounts of money. And I was trying to work out what was stopping them from investing in the ocean, because for me, it was quite clearly a good idea, but something was missing. And I think this is the big question for a lot of people. We're constantly told there's this huge wall of government and institutional money which is ready to come to our oceans, but it hasn't arrived yet, and people don't really understand why. And what I worked out, I don't know if this is the correct answer, but this is my theory. There are 3 main reasons that stops a pension fund manager investing in nature, not just oysters. One is you need huge scale. They need to be able to give you 100 million euros minimum. Otherwise, the administration, the due diligence just doesn't make sense. Secondly, it needs to be professional. It needs to be consistent, predictable. You need to have a track record. And although all of these projects based on communities and dog walkers and everything, they're amazing and we need to keep doing these things. If you say to a pension fund manager, yeah, my project, the labor force is based on 50 people with no contracts that may or may not show up on Monday, that's a no. That's an immediate no. And then the final thing is that you need to deliver a return. Ultimately, all of you who have a pension fund need some money at the end of it as well. And we needed to come up with a way to do that. So I started Oyster Heaven in an attempt to create an antidote for these three things, to try and be the funnel for this large-scale money to come into oyster restoration. So for me, this was the shape. This is the institutional pension fund world, and that little blue squiggle is oyster restoration at the moment. They don't understand it. It doesn't fit. It's like a puzzle piece. So we need to make it bigger, predictable. Wow. We need to make it bigger, predictable, and attractive. So this is a video. This is a video. Should be a video. This is what most of the North Sea looks like at the moment. It's a marine desert. And if you want to make oyster reefs come back, you need to provide them a surface. They need a hard surface to settle on. In the past, it would have just been their mums and dads. Yeah, okay, maybe it's time. In the past, it would have just been their mums and dads. Baby oysters would have just settled on old shells. Cool. So what most people try and do is they put out old shells in the water and they spread them out and they go, okay, then the babies are going to land on them, great. Unfortunately, we don't have enough shells. We ate 99% of the oysters in the North Sea. They're functionally extinct. So I need to think about alternatives. People like using concrete, but unfortunately, concrete is quite problematic. If you fill up with the North Sea with concrete, people aren't going to be very happy. And there are lots of sort of 3D printed, nice natural structures which look great in a design fair, but ultimately don't scale. And we need something that you can throw 100 million euros at easily, and you can get this low-cost, predictable outcome. So we invented something called the Mother Reef. It's fantastic because it solves these three problems. Firstly, clay is the most abundant material on the surface of the planet. We're never going to run out of it. And it has a really incredible infrastructure behind it. We've been working with clay for tens of thousands of years. We are really good at producing it at high scales. And the final beautiful property is when you fire it at lower temperatures, it just erodes slowly into the water, into a sediment. So at the end of the project, you don't even know that our scaffolding for the oysters have been there. So how do we do this? How does it work in practice? First, you get a lot of mother oysters and you heat them up in water and you kind of trick them into thinking it's the breeding season. And each one of these oysters will have 500,000 larvae that end up going and swimming in the water. And they look a bit like this. That's when they're swimming around in juveniles. It's really sweet. And they do something even more sweet when they're happy and they're ready to settle. And that is they start spiraling in the water, which is really weird. And I love it. Then you pour your larvae into the water and you put your bricks in And then you give them a few weeks to start growing up. And then you pack them up on your pallets and we take them out into the water. Now you remember me talking about not relying on volunteers. So we only work with fishermen. So this is Marcel van der Kreek's eel fishing boat in the Weersemeer. And he fishes eels on some days and he put us oyster reefs out in the water on other days. And he loves it because we're paying him his day rate to use his boat, his knowledge and experience. We've got a lovely contract with him. And he doesn't see these as oyster homes, he sees them as eel homes. And he's fishing lots more eel now. So this is just a little video of one of these things going into the water. We're using super generic technology. This is just a hook and it goes in. And they arrive and land on the bottom of this sort of desert surface. And this is kind of what they look like at the moment. And then in just 12 months, this comes out. And it's not just the oysters that come back, but they act as this incredible biosignature. So seaweeds and sponges and shrimp, crab, lobster, eel, and legions of juvenile whitefish also are magnetically attracted to these places. And then they start laying their eggs, and it becomes this breeding ground, and they're shooting out all of their babies. So it might make you think that we sell bricks. It's not quite the case. What we sell is resilience services. So you remember all these jobs that I was talking about that the oysters do. We look for businesses that rely on a healthy ocean ecosystem, a healthy coastline. For example, organizations that have fish in their ingredients. For organizations like water utilities that need to make sure that the coastal water is clean. Or organizations that sell insurance and need to keep their property real estate from going underwater. So, as I said, oysters are producing fish. So we sell wild fish. Oysters do this incredible job of cleaning water. One oyster cleans 200 liters of water a day. And you can see here in just a couple of hours, the water becomes completely transparent. These are natural water filters, much cheaper than the technology that we use today. And they are a living concrete. They protect our coastlines, and unlike traditional grey infrastructure that slowly degrades over time, oyster reefs grow and get stronger, and then provide all these other jobs as well. So, how does this actually work in practice? We compare it to building a wind farm. So you'll have an energy company like E.ON or Stedin, and they say, we need energy, and they go to a developer and they say, can you build us a wind farm and we'll buy the energy from you. So instead, we have an organization like Nestle, which is one of our first clients. And they say, we sell lots of fish, we need more fish, can you build us a fish factory? And we say, yeah, sure, we'll do that. So our first projects are in the Weersemeer and the Dutch Delta, in the Belgian North Sea, which Stefan just mentioned, and in North Norfolk. And just for calibration of what we're doing at the moment, this is not a fantasy, this is not a pilot and we're working this out. We're in full motion at the moment. For reference, the grand total of restored oysters in Europe ever, the history of restored oysters is about 400,000. The last time I tried to count, and I might get this number completely wrong, but I think it's around that. In the last 4 months, we've put in 1.2 million oysters. And by the end of this year, it will be 5 million. And by 2030, it will be at least 100 million if our modeling is correct, because it's not just throwing in a few hundred and then leaving them, but they'll start having children and reproducing. And this is the beautiful thing, because at some point you can just take your hand off the steering wheel and they'll do it on their own. Every adult oyster that reaches sexual maturity will have 50,000 children that also reach sexual maturity. The maths of this is absurd. And so we don't have to keep on planting things and working with boats, because if you put enough in and you go back beyond this tipping point, then things will just start to cascade. This makes me incredibly hopeful. It is all possible. And nature comes back really quickly. And the beautiful thing about the ocean is that we haven't cut it up with roads and buildings, and things can move across. And we've just got this incredible connectivity, which is not available otherwise. So how does this fit into your pension fund? So at the moment, when we're given an order and they say, build us this project, we need to raise some money to build the project, and then we can sell it to them. And I can't say who the name of the which pension fund it is, but we'll be announcing in a couple of weeks that we're able to draw this money to build these projects from one of the UK government's largest pension funds. So it will be teachers and nurses and firemen who are putting money behind these reefs, and ultimately the money from their retirement will be coming from oyster reefs. I'm so excited for what's going to happen over the next 5 years. And if there's anything that I can leave you with, if you speak to your pension fund manager, which I don't know if you do, tell them about oysters, tell that investing in nature is possible. And if you work for a big dairy company causing a mess in the Dutch Delta, then also let me know, because I'm quite keen to speak to you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, George, for sharing your story in this unusual situation. Thanks for that. It shows resilience. I think time for one question.
Yeah, sure.
One, only one. Yes.
Whatever
Okay.
you like.
It's a beautiful example of nature-based solutions, and most of the nature-based solutions are still in a pilot kind of state. Yours is scaling. Yours is investable. For people who get what nature-based solutions really is, it's obvious. It's a no-brainer. But to be honest, it's not by default the very first thing you do when you want to protect coastlines or things like that. What, according to you, as you have the experience, can be really the strategic lever to make it work and convince people?
I think it's not a question of one or the other at the moment. And the best way to get these layered into the solutions that we need to protect our coastline or deal with water damage is you work with the water utility and you say, okay, you're great at cleaning up 90% of the pollution in your outflows, but that last 10% is still a bit of a problem. So let us put some oysters in, we'll reduce your cost, you're going to stop getting fines, and then everyone wins. Or similarly with coastal infrastructure, so you put in your breakwater or your seawall, just put some oysters around the end of it, and then the Rijkswaterstaat is happy because they know it's going to be protected, and then you can start doing these tests to see how well it's doing. So I think it's working with the actors that are already present to make sure that you're not just lurching into the unknown. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. We often discuss the idea to make it tangible, visible, turn it into an experience. Why not turn it into a snorkeling garden where people can enjoy it and say, "Hey, wow, this is so cool." So, if anyone has a connection to a worn-out harbor or a delta or anything else, we can make something fun of it. Maybe one last question. If you're focused on the big blue, the coastlines, and so on. Of course, nature-based solutions are around in a more land-based situation. Do you have a favorite? Something that is promising?
My favorite nature-based solution. Um, so it's not quite land-based, but I think Oyster Heaven, this is just an example. I think there are so many different systems that this same kind of model could apply with. So I've been thinking about Otter Heaven. Otters, like the little things that swim in the water, the mammals. Yeah, okay.
Otters. Okay.
Otters. And so kelp forests in Norway have disappeared massively because of sea urchins. And the sea urchins eat the kelp, and then they go into this weird zombie mode, and then and they don't do anything. But then when more kelp comes in, they just wake up and eat it again. It's a disaster. And the reason that there are too many sea urchins is because we've basically gotten rid of all the predators. So we've killed the otters for their fur and eaten all the wolffish and things. So I think I'm giving this idea away because I'm probably never going to have time to do it. So if anyone loves otters here, but I was going to train a pack of otters and then bring them to Norway, and then they go and eat foods and just clean up all the urchins, and then the kelp forests regrow. And then they don't pay you for the otters, but they pay you for this kelp restoration service.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting and out of the ordinary. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, George, I think you will be around for if you have questions. Give him a warm applause for sharing his story. And for those of you who stayed here during the rain conditions, thank you so much. I think when I look at the time, maybe if you are looking for spiritual enlightenment, you can still catch the last part of Sadhguru's story. Maybe it will be full of cosmic vibrations, but be honest, the man has an enormous legacy when it comes to protecting our soils. And I think later on, after a big break, you're all welcome at the Freedom stage for more stories on economy, science, technology, and so on. Thanks you for staying here. Thank you for your attention, and hope to see you next year. Bye.